Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Guillermo Robles. I work at the Metropolitan Public Transport Authority here at the Ministry of Transport. First of all, I want to present the excuses of our director, Paola Tapia. She had an emergency in the field, so she will be not joining us today for the initial words, but we have a very good set of speakers that will be joining us from different organizations. They tell me you can listen. Okay, so that's great. First of all, on behalf of the Ministry of Transport and Telecommunications, we welcome you to the launch of the English version of our first electromobility report that has been prepared by the Metropolitan Public Transport Authority. This report aims to give like a comprehensive view and share the results, the lessons, the challenges, and also the mistakes that we have been able to collect through these different through almost 10 years since the first electric buses started working here in Santiago de Chile. We hope that this report will not only give a view of the electromobility here in Chile, but will also provide valuable material and experiences, as well as best practices to be used by other transport systems around the world. We launched this is a milestone for our system. It's the first report of this kind that we have been able to prepare. It's very complete, has a lot of data on pollution or on noise pollution or on our business model, on the costs and the maintenance and the economic benefits and the social benefits from using electric buses at a large scale. We first launched this report back in April, the Spanish version with a in-person event here in Santiago. And we aim now with this English version to be able to cross borders and being able to share it with the world and also being able to attract more interest in some of the very interesting things that we are doing here in Santiago de Chile. We deeply appreciate your presence from around the world. It's very valuable to us that so many people is joining us today. We also want to appreciate the collaboration from different agencies that have made possible that we have been able to do this report and also this webinar, especially the Ministry of Environment of the Government of Chile, the Chilean Agency for International Development and Cooperation, the Center for Sustainable Mobility, the International Council on Clean Transportation, and the International Association of Public Transport. We are grateful for the presence of representatives from government agencies, from the Red Movilidad operating companies, from industry, from the manufacturing industry, the various embassies and international delegations that are joining us today, foreign chambers of commerce, international organizations, and universities. We also want to take the chance to comment that if you have a representative here in Chile, that you are able to approach the Ministry of Transport, as we are currently selling still the legal requirements to apply for the next tender process that we are carrying out now. That represents a 15% more of the system that we hope to be able to close and to continue the renewal of the system from here to March of next year. To begin, we would like to invite you to watch a video that summarizes some of the main highlights of what has been this road to electromobility. So if you stay with me for a couple of minutes, I will now show you the video.
En Red Movilidad trabajamos día a día para que Santiago sea un gran lugar para vivir, impulsando un transporte público sustentable, amigable con el medio ambiente, seguro, accesible e inclusivo. Chile asume un compromiso firme en materia medioambiental, alcanzar la carbono neutralidad al 2050. Enorme tarea que comenzó en 2017 con los primeros buses eléctricos y hoy ya son más de 2.555 en 36 comunas. La electromovilidad se ha consolidado como una política de Estado, posicionando a Santiago como un referente mundial. Desde este año, todas las nuevas incorporaciones al sistema serán 100% eléctricas. Para el 2040, el 100% del transporte público en Santiago será cero emisiones, beneficiando a la ciudad y sus habitantes con menos ruido, menos contaminación y mejor calidad de vida. Los buses eléctricos han reducido los niveles de ruido en la ciudad, permitieron disminuir el consumo de petróleo. También se logró bajar 25,2 toneladas de material particulado fino 2.5. En términos de gases de efecto invernadero, las emisiones de CO2 descendieron en un 22,3%. La electromovilidad transforma la vida de las personas. En Red Movilidad sabemos que este trabajo no termina acá. Este año sumaremos más de 1.800 buses eléctricos, beneficiando a 3.5 millones de personas. Así, Santiago seguirá siendo una ciudad líder en electromovilidad en América Latina y el mundo. Progreso que ha sido posible gracias al trabajo coordinado entre el sector público, privado y la ciudadanía. Hoy, este avance se ve reflejado en el primer informe de electromovilidad Santiago de Chile 2024, nuestro compromiso hacia la carbono neutralidad. Esta es una radiografía de nuestro sistema y un testimonio del impacto económico, ambiental y social de la electromovilidad como política pública. Los invitamos a sentirse parte de este camino, a compartir el orgullo de lo que hemos logrado y a seguir construyendo juntos el futuro del transporte público.
Oh, welcome back. So that was kind of a general highlight of some of the things that we have been doing here over the last 10 years. So before we go to our first presentation and we introduce our different speakers, some rules of the house. I commend you to write your questions on the chat on YouTube with your name and the organization that you represent. At the end of the three presentations, we'll have a small space to answer two or three of them, kind of in a panel discussion between all the speakers. And we will also be joined by Diego Silva, which is our head of contracts here at the Metropolitan Public Transport Authority. Our speakers come from the Metropolitan Public Transport Authority and some partner organizations that have been key in the development of this report and in the rollout of electromobility here in Chile, connecting us with partners across the world. They will share their views, experiences, lessons learned, and some of the projections in the international arena for electromobility in the public transport systems. Our first speaker is Paola Garcia, which is the head of operations and maintenance here at the Metropolitan Public Transport Authority. Paola is a civil engineer with a specialization in urban transportation and has a master's degree in data science. She has over 20 years of experience in transport system planning, demand estimation, data analysis, and mobility within public agencies. She has extensive experience defining transportation plans and formulating and managing projects. She's the director of the Chilean Transportation Society, Xochitran, since 2022. And she's the first woman to assume the role of a manager of operations and maintenance here in the history of the Metropolitan Public Transport System in Santiago. So I will give now the room for Paola.
Thank you, Guillermo. Now we can start with our presentation. Thank you, everyone. We defined our strategy in 2017 and we updated in 2021. In 2035, all new public transport must be zero emissions. By 2040, 100% of urban must be clean. In 2023, we launched the first 100% electric tender. That means we are 10 years ahead of schedule. In a few words, our vision: to be the best bus system, safe, reliable, and sustainable. Our mission: to improve lives with clean, accessible transport for everyone. We have three key laws that support us. 1. Subsidy for public transport, concession rules for assets, and technical standards also are fundamental concession contracts, and our expert panel who fixes the first, and the AFT, who is our financial administration, they control our budget. The evolution of our project consists on these 5 financial keys. 1. Supply contracts allow us separate operation and asset ownership, facilitate external investment. Number 2, fleet quotas. AFT transfer bus payment directly to financiers, results in financial stability. Number 3, concession assets. That means separate ownership of buses and operation, leads guarantee continuity during operator changes. Number 4, better energy supply offer. We created a free customer model. That means competitive energy prices. Number 5, enable public infrastructure. We are working in public infrastructure partnership that allow lower entry barrier for new operators. Today, Red Mobilidad. We have 6,500 buses in operation, 9 operators, more than 2,500 buses, 29 electric terminals, and plus more 12,000 bus stops. We started with 2 electric buses in 2017, and the end of the 2025, we will have 4,400 electric buses. That means more than 68% fleet to be electric. In this chart shows how we are replacing diesel buses with technology more pollutant for electric buses or Euro 6. For building an electric terminal, collaborative work is very important. We are working all the time with energy companies, municipalities, government agencies, and many others. That allows to decrease construction time and avoid different issues. Economic benefits. Between 2020 and 2025, we had a 40% reduction in price of electric buses. That means electric buses are now almost the same price as diesel buses. Also, next please, operation costs also are decreases. Maintenance cost is 44% less, and electric buses are 65% cheaper per kilometer than diesel buses. Since 2018, we have had historic reduction in emission. The CO2 has been reduced 28% and PM 2.5 down 62%. Acquire city. Nowadays, our principal avenue, Alameda, is 44% quiet. 70% of residents notice less noise, and this number is higher for residents closer to the electric depots. We did measurements in different kinds of buses, brand and ages. Electric buses are 63 53% quiet without passenger, 46% reduction at the driver position, and 78% of driver report less noise inside buses. Public perception of Red Mobilidad is at historical levels. 77% value its air quality benefits, 72% appreciate the noise reduction, and 94% thinks it drives innovation. 89% of people in Santiago thinks electromobility has brought a sense of modernity and innovation to the neighborhoods. Now you are invited to download the report. You can find more information about this historical project. It's now available on our webpage. This is the QR. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Paola, for the presentation. As she said, you can find our report now on our webpage. And also we will have this presentation up in our YouTube channel, so you can see it again if you want to. Our next speaker is Dionisio Gonzalez, which is the Director of Advocacy and Director of LATAM for the International Association of Public Transport. He's an executive with extensive experience in the planning and management of public transport and urban mobility infrastructure and services. He has developed his professional career in the Madrid Government Public Transport Authority in Spain, the European Investment Bank in Luxembourg, and currently the International Union of Public Transport that has over 2,000 members in 100 countries around the world. Coordinated the advocacy work, and since last year also the management of the association in Latin America. He's the co-author of 4 books in transport and engineering and mobility, and he's a professor in different masters and a regular speaker in national and international debate for us on urban mobility. So I'll now give the space to Dionisio.
Thank you very much, Guillermo. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure for UITP, and it's a pleasure for me personally to be part of this webinar to show the way DTPM, the Ministry of Transport and Telecommunications of Chile, has led the electric public transport revolution. Next, please. Here you can see the different elements of the presentation. There will be a short presentation of UITP, and then the key factors for the successful implementation of a sustainable mobility strategy, going from the more strategic points to the more operational points into the deployment of e-buses based on UITP's experience all around the world. Next, please. So the UITP is the International Association of Public Transport, is the bringing together 2,000 members from 100 countries, public transport authorities, operators, and industry to share and learn from each other. Next, please. Next, please. We have 3 main missions. One is advocacy, working together with decision makers and international partners to promote public transport and sustainable mobility. The second one is knowledge sharing, working together with our members all around the world, operators and industry, to understand the needs of the sector and to learn from each other. And the third one has to do with the networking. Yeah? So going again, as I said, from the strategic aspects to the tactical and the operational ones, and this is also, in my view, part of the success of DTPM, and congratulations again to DTPM for this excellent first electromobility report. The first pillar for the implementation of this successful mobility strategy has to do with having an integrated vision and to project ourselves into the future, trying to understand what type of cities, what type of countries do we want for our children. And this has to do, and this is part of the report also, with the clear interlinkages between sustainable urban mobility and a lot of different aspects in our life, from health to social inclusion and competitiveness economy opportunities for all. Yeah. The next pillar has to do with the right institutional framework, governance, and regulation. And again, in the evolution in the last years in DTPM's governance scheme, you can see how all these elements have been supporting the deployment of this e-mobility strategy. Because it's often the case that the public sector doesn't have the ability, the skills, the agility to react and to accommodate the different regulations to the needs of the sector. Yeah, this is not the case in Santiago de Chile, and we have identified, coming from a study, the UMI, Urban Mobility Innovation Index, developed by UITP some years ago, that one of the main barriers to implement any sustainable urban mobility strategy has to do with the lack of regulation, lack of strategy, and in some cases also the lack of capability. But regulation is fundamental. Yeah? And the way DTPN has evolved the different governance mechanisms since 2015 until now shows the capacity to accommodate to the needs of the sector, to provide stability, to provide viability to the different projects that they have been launching. Definitely, fundamental pillar is also having a stable funding framework, and the subsidies law that again has been approved and reinforced in Chile in the last years has been incredible to provide these financial revenues to the sector. And finally, what is very, very important that in most of the countries makes the difference between a successful or an unsuccessful strategy has to do with the bold political leadership. And it's clear that in Santiago de Chile and also in the regions now with DTPR, Chile is leading from this political point of view. So before going into the details of the e-mobility deployment, I would like to highlight some of the activities that UITP is doing in relation to the strategic approach to decarbonization. And in here, we follow what it's called the Avoid, Shift, Improve approach. UITP has been working in the review of the national determined contributions to understand which countries are considering public transport into their climate plans, and also to understand the level of ambition, let's say, into these NDCs. Yeah, it's true that most countries, or double of the countries that did it in 2015, had now incorporated the public transport as a pillar in the national determined contributions. But it's also true that when in the review that our colleagues have developed about these plans, the leadership, meaning who is taking the lead on these projects, is not always very clear. The duration and the ambition in most of the cases is still very low. And when it comes to the investment, the budget that we are allocating to that, and how to evaluate and monitor the implementation of these NDCs, there is still a clear gap that again is making the difference between those cases and what is happening in Chile with clear commitments from the national government. So we have developed what we call the NDC template, which is a guidebook to show to countries how to incorporate public transport into their climate plans. Now that at COP30 they have to publish, let's say, the new ambitions. I encourage you, I invite you to have a look to this and reach out to UITP in case you have any doubts. There is a clear classification of measures that have been implemented in different countries to advance public transport in a sustainable and climate-friendly way. In addition to that, it's important to focus the discussion in the way that we distribute the urban space. Yeah? And there are a couple of slides now where you will see the importance of this and how to work with the land use design and the city design in order to provide more space and priority to public transport. Yeah, it's a question mainly of geometry and not that much on technology, being technology an important element. Yeah? So moving forward, and let me make this very clear, because this is one of the key messages that we convey in some fora. Decarbonization is not electrification. I mean, there are other aspects that are super important in that regard. As I said, integrated land use and transport planning, modal shift, etc. But then technology, of course, is one of the elements that should be considered. Yeah? And in that regard, UITP's road to knowledge has been already extensive for many, many years. Yeah? And we have had the privilege of working with many colleagues at UITP that are real experts on these topics, initially in Europe, and now more and more in different parts of the world. Yeah? Let me share with you this Clean Bus initiative, which is a learning platform enabling the large-scale deployment of clean buses. Yeah? And here, and this is something that we are trying to replicate in other parts of the world, more than 70 cities shared together their practices, their mistakes in relation to the implementation of e-buses. So there were some cities that were leaders, as the case of Santiago. There were some other cities that were followers. Yeah, but this change between peers has been really successful, and this is what we would like to replicate now with the leadership of Santiago de Chile in Latin America. Next, please. So those are examples of different technologies, different pilots, different projects that took part in the last years. Yeah? Let me also highlight this impressive work of UITP's committees on clean buses, yeah? With a different number of working groups. I invite you to review them. They are available on my library. And in here, this is the output of the work of the UITP bus and the UITP industry committee working together in the last years. So with all this information and with all this very important radar that UITP has from the members around the world, we have identified some key factors for the success of e-bus deployment. And you will see, if you have the opportunity, as I had, to read the report from DTPM, you will identify those in Santiago de Chile's case. First, it's important to really understand that this is a fundamental shift of paradigm. This is not a vehicle approach anymore, it's a system approach. Second, it's very important to consider the financial requirements in these type of projects, the importance to develop new business model, to understand the new business model, to understand the new actors and the different roles, and also to fine-tune this interaction during the way. Yeah? For instance, I think that the approach in Santiago de Chile, putting together and inviting to work together operators and manufacturers is in the last call is really very clever, because there you can find a lot of synergies that might not be appearing in previous tenders. It's very important also to consider the operational requirements. It's a completely new technology. There are different, completely new ways of operations, and this requires an upskill from all the aspects in the company. As we said already, as we mentioned already, it's very important to have political will and stability over the time to create confidence, to create certainty, to attract investors, because there is a solid legal and administrative framework, as again, it is the case in Santiago de Chile. It's important to involve from the very early stages the different types of stakeholders. And here I would like to acknowledge the work that the Ministry of Transport and particularly DTPM has been doing in a number of road shows to share their call for tenders, to discuss with potential companies the viability of the different products that they wanted to launch to the market, to secure the highest level of competitiveness and attraction of international talent, to work together with the local talent. It's very important, and this is something that UITP is promoting, and we are more than happy to support you on this, to share and learn best practices from peer cities. And it's also, and this has been also the case, and Paola Garcia already explained about that, it's also a golden opportunity to rethink your system and to revamp the public transport image in your city. So that's all on my side. I just wanted to share a number of resources, again, coming from the excellent work of our members, excellent work of our knowledge and innovation colleagues at UITP, and feel free to reach out to any of us if you would like to get more information on this. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Dionisio, for your presentation. Also, a reminder to put your comments on our YouTube channel comment section, so we can collect those questions for our last panel. Also, to remind you that in our webpage, you can download the report. We will also share the link in the comment section in our YouTube channel. Our next speaker is Sebastián Galarza from the Center for Sustainable Mobility. He is the executive director of the Center for Sustainable Mobility. He supports the development of public policies for the decarbonization of transportation sector in Latin America and the Caribbean, working closely with government authorities and technical teams to advance the electrification of public transportation, commercial fleets, and also private vehicles. Previously, he worked at the Inter-American Development Bank and the International Council on Clean Transportation in the US, and the Mario Molina Center here in Chile. He's from Ecuador and he lives in Chile since 2015. So I'll now give the room to Sebastián, and so he can do his presentation.
Thank you so much, Guillermo. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. I'm assuming that you do hear me. Yes?
Yes.
Well, I'll go ahead. Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for the invitation, Guillermo, Paula, and everyone at DTPM. It's a pleasure to work with you and to support the electrification of Santiago's public transportation fleet. And today I'll be talking about how we have leapfrogged from traditional ICE vehicles to electric in such a short time in Santiago, and talk about the experience of Santiago Red System. And so in order to do so, I first wanted to give a very brief overview of the situation in Latin America and why we're focusing on public transportation. And one of the main reasons is that, 80% of public transportation trips are conducted by bus in Latin America and the Caribbean. It is the main mode of transportation or public transportation in the region, but it also accounts for around 25% of urban emissions in our cities. And because of that, it's crucial to be able to drive the transformation in this sector, also because it's a sector that traditionally has not received as much investment as other parts of the economy. So only around 1% of GDP is invested in public transportation in their systems, which is already, plagued by a lot of informality in much of our smaller cities in particular. And this is crucial also to understand because there's a lot of other opportunities to electrify these systems, including the fact that we have a lot of BRT systems that make it, much easier to have certainty around operations and hence electrification of these systems, but also because the average age of a lot of the vehicles is already exceeding 10 years, making it ripe for transformation and ripe also for leapfrogging technologies into more efficient and less polluting forms of transportation, as we've seen with electrification here in Santiago. And finally, just a quick note, also in terms of gender, women represent around 60% of public transportation users in the region, and this is also a crucial aspect of the work that DTPM is doing. And this is also important to understand given the long history that Santiago's public transportation system has gone through to transform into what it is now. And these pictures highlight two of the main issues that we've seen over the course of history. One, public transportation being a source of pollution, but also two, this huge amount of informality and large fleets that also plague our cities. And in the next slide, what we see is that since the return to democracy, there's been an emphasis in trying to organize and stabilize the public transportation system. So with deregulation policies in the 80s in particular, and leading up to the 90s, we saw a huge increment in the number of fleets, being a number of buses operating in. And the efforts towards the introduction of Transantiago, the first formal system here in Chile, were made to be able to reduce the number of those vehicles and stabilize the public transportation system. But since then, there's been also a strong focus on vehicle technology. And that's what we see on the next slide, where we show that Santiago has not only focused on transforming the fleet by introducing electric buses, but this is also the fruit of efforts that have begun, particularly in the 2000s, with the introduction of more stringent emission standards. So this is something, this is a progressive effort that has been done in Chile, focused primarily because of the the strong pollution that Santiago suffers, to introduce more stringent emission standards in the public transportation system. And that has laid the groundwork for what we saw beginning in the early 2008 period, introduction of the first system. So the next slide, we how it scaled very quickly from the first pilot projects that were conducted in Santiago in around 2013, 2014. We saw a quick introduction facilitated by public policy to scale these services. And we quickly saw this opportunity to electrify systems that were ripe for, this disruption. And something that we saw very quickly was how we moved from these two buses that were operating in one system to the first fleet of 100 buses. That's the picture that you see there. And then quickly introducing and scaling these services. And this has been done through the effort to introduce a new structure for tendering systems that have incorporated or facilitated the incorporation of over 3,300 electric buses to the city in a time frame of less than 8 years. So this is a very important lesson for all other cities, also looking at Santiago's example of how we can use, these supply side regulations of including, these tenders and efforts to introduce certain incentives in these tenders for electric buses to move quickly towards electrification. And what we've seen in the last tenders at Santiago de Chile is that now we are only buying electric buses. And this results in what we see in the next slide, in this rapid introduction of electric buses, scaling the system towards leapfrogging from IC vehicles, diesel vehicles to electric. And we saw this very quick scale up from only 2 buses in 2017 and 2018 operating to now at the end of the year, close to 69% of the fleet will be electric. And this is a huge, huge jump, a huge effort to leapfrog technologies in a very short time period. And just to mention this, we've had we have examples from elsewhere in the world where we have a lot of electrification, but Chile has positioned itself as a market leader through these tenders, also showing how Colombia, Bogota in particular, has adopted or had previously adopted very similar structures to incentivize the introduction of electric buses. And we see it being positioned as a market leader. And these slides that I'm going to show you from now on are also part of a dashboard that we constructed as part of this first electric mobility report, where you can dive into more details regarding how Santiago is transitioning towards electric mobility in the public transportation system. But as you see now, we're already close to 40% of the fleet being electric. In the next slide, we also see how crucial battery electric buses have been to reducing pollutants and greenhouse gases from the city and from the public transportation system. And so this is very important to note, because still transportation is one of the main sources of pollutions in Santiago de Chile. But these buses have already shown how we can quickly reduce CO2 emissions that have dropped in more than 28%. particular matter emissions that have dropped by more than 62%, and we see similar drops in terms of NOx and other pollutants that are that are coming from the diesel fleets that we're trying to move away from. And this is also similar to what we've seen in terms of noise reductions that were mentioned in the previous slide, that have also been apparent in the bus depots. So something that has also been crucial for the electrification is the huge extent and the rapidity and in which we have deployed charging infrastructure for these buses. And we already have more than 20 electric bus depots in operation with over 100 megawatts of installed capacity for the operation of more than 3,000 electric buses in the city. And this is rapidly growing. And with this, we can see that this has also spurred investment. And over the course of the past few years, we've seen over $1.3 billion mobilized to electrify public transportation in Santiago. And this is a huge change in terms of the amount of investment that the public transportation system is receiving from a myriad of actors, including private sector financial actors, multilateral banks, and others that have helped drive this electrification in the city. And this is what we've seen so far. We've seen huge innovations in terms of how we develop charging infrastructure. What we're seeing there is actually a very unique setup that was developed here in Santiago de Chile to have charging infrastructure on top. You see that structure that has been made. That is an innovation that was conducted here in Santiago to make better use of the space and the facilities that we have, but also it's an opportunity to innovate and create business opportunities for local entrepreneurs. And this is something that we've also seen take off through the introduction of electric buses into the public transportation system in Santiago. And finally, what we're seeing in Santiago is that we're fast closing the gap to reach our target of only buying electric buses by 2035. And this is a crucial target that we've set. This is a target that has also been moved forward previously. And what we're seeing in terms of Santiago is that it is really taking a lead and leadership in this electrification of public transportation, which is leading the way in terms of decarbonizing the transportation sector in Chile as a whole. And what we see in terms of what is left and what are the challenges that are left in order to meet that goal, we also need to understand that closing that final gap, that by the end of the year, we're almost going to have 70% of the vehicles being electrified, but closing that last gap is crucial. And that demands a lot of work, that 100% fleet electrification. That includes challenges in terms of infrastructure and energy demand, making sure that we have the bus depots to be able to manage a fleet of over almost 7,000 vehicles that would be electric, making sure that we can electrify articulated buses, which remains one of the challenges that we've faced here in Santiago de Chile so far. Although we've seen pilots, we have yet to scale these services, and this is a challenge that we also have. We need to close the marginal cost gap as well, meaning that so far what we've been able to electrify has also been what has been easiest to electrify in terms of cost, in terms of operations, and being able to close that last gap in 30%, that last remaining 30% means that we'll be able to close and be more efficient in terms of the deployment of these buses to ensure that we're also making money out of these processes. Finally, the last two factors that we also need to consider are reserve fleets and making sure that these are also fully electric. And finally, making sure that the bus depots are also backed up by battery systems, but also seeing how we can make sure that we incorporate circularity with our batteries into the process of electrification of the public transportation system. So these are the challenges that we're also going to be supporting DTPM and the Ministry of Transport in the coming years to ensure that Santiago continues to lead the way in the electrification of the public transportation system in Latin America and the Caribbean, but also showing lessons to countries and cities across the global south. And what we've seen so far is, this huge effort by so many cities across the region to deploy electric buses. And here there's a lot of opportunities for synergies and lesson learning, as my colleagues from UITP mentioned, and as we are supporting through initiatives such as SEBRA in conjunction with ICCT and C40. And actually these numbers are from the eBus radar, where we can see how these buses are being deployed. And I invite you all to also review those publications. Again, with that, I close. Thank you very much again for this opportunity to talk about these efforts to electrify public transportation in Santiago de Chile. Always happy to support the teams at DTPM. And finally, just making sure that you all visit the site where you can see the first electric mobility report and also explore the dashboard that we developed for DTPM in these efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sebastián, for your presentation. We'll now have a small panel discussion with a few questions for our guests. So we'll be joined by the three speakers and also by Diego Silva, which is our head of contracts here at the Metropolitan Public Transport Authority. So let me start adding them. Hello, everyone. So thank you for your presentations. So I actually have three questions. So each one is for Sebastián, one is for Dionisio, one is for Diego. But please feel free to also intervene as you see fit in each other's response. For you, Sebastián, the first one will be. What is the impact of electromobility on environmental issues? What is the contribution of the industry, and what will you export from the experience here in Santiago to other cities?
Great. That's a very comprehensive question. But I think, some of the things that we've mentioned, and I think one thing that is crucial to understand is also when we look at how we move in cities across Latin America and the Caribbean and across many cities in the global south, the main mode of transportation is the bus. And one of the things that is crucial when thinking about this is that buses transport a lot of people. And although a lot of the efforts that have been made and a lot of the way that we speak about emissions is being able to reduce, emissions per kilometer traveled, we also need to think about emissions per kilometer per passenger traveled. And that's where public transportation is crucial. And this is why the experience of Santiago is so important, because Santiago and Chile as a whole have emphasized promoting electric mobility in the public transportation system, because from one end, it also it's a democratization of access to these technologies, but it also has so many other co-benefits in terms of reducing CO2 emissions, particulate matter emissions, and NOx emissions that are detrimental to public health and also climate change. So I think this is a crucial lesson in terms of, if you're a city, if you're a country that is looking to decarbonize, first look at your public transportation system and look at how you can do that. And the lessons from Chile are crucial. And finally, in terms of industry and innovation, I think we've seen a lot of innovative companies come out of this process in Chile. We have companies that are now global, providing services for electrification of public buses across the world, and this is something that has come through these efforts to decarbonize the system here in Chile. But also, exporting knowledge and experience is also crucial, and this is where colleagues from UITP and DTPM also help in spreading this word.
Thank you, Sebastián. The next question is for Diego. which is on the what are the next steps on the regulation of roads, and a bit about the next tender process that are coming to the system here.
Thank you, Guillermo, for the question. Yeah, so actually, currently we are in the stage of the implementation of the tendering process number 2, and the next step for possible new tendering process actually it's the tendering process number 3, the 2025 process. We are in the stage that just beginning the process in terms of the tendering terms requirements. So we are in that stage expecting to receive possible participants, so be aware of those dates as well. So with that process, we are expecting to incorporate additional 300 roughly new buses. Remembering that, as Paola was saying, that currently Santiago is a city outside China with the biggest fleet with 2,500 buses. So with this tendering process number 3, we're expected to consolidate our position, our system here in Santiago with the electric buses. We're expecting to totalize almost 4,700 actually buses with this tendering process. Because in this tendering process that I just mentioned, the number 2 that we are just implementing this during this year, we are actually implementing 1,800. So as a total, we will have 4,700 buses. So we have too much work to do in the next months. It's a very challenging times, but with the focus that our work is based on to improve the quality of service for our user, for the inhabitants of Santiago, we're expecting to achieve all our different goals. So the invitation is done for new participants for this tendering process that is just beginning again.
Thank you, Diego. Now the next question is for Dionisio Gonzalez, which is on the importance of subsidies and also the importance of the use of subsidies in public transport. And we will also be joined by our director, which will join us just at the end of Dionisio's answer, so she can also give us a few words. So,
Thank you very much, Guillermo, for the question. I really love this one, because if first at UITP we don't speak about subsidies, we speak about compensations, because what we are getting are the revenues coming from the fares, which are paid by the users, by the customers, and then a number of transactions coming from different levels of the government or from different, let's say, financial or mechanisms to get revenues into the system. Yeah, but all in all, if you would like to have high-level public transport service, it's very important to allocate the appropriate budget. Yeah? And this is very clear in societies that are competitive, where there are opportunities for all, where the city is really livable, are cities and metropolitan areas with very powerful and integrated public transport systems in terms of infrastructures and in terms of services. Yeah? So just to give you one figure, for every peso that is invested in public transport, there are 5 pesos generated for the whole economy. Yeah? And this is supported by a number of studies in different parts of the world. Yeah? So let's stop talking about subsidies. Let's start talking about compensations, and let's really make public transport viable from the economic, social, and environmental point of view.
Thank you, Dionisio. Now I'll add Paola to this conversation. I'll remove myself. I'll remove Diego, which lost the connection. So I'll add our director now, okay? she lost the connection, so just give me 1 second. Okay. Oh, sure. Okay. So she had a problem. So no worries with that. So I think we are okay with the webinar for now. So thank you a lot, Sebastian. Yeah, Dionisio.
Very quickly, if I may, in relation to this funding and financing of public transport, we are about to finalize a report with the Inter-American Development Bank, a report that has been also led by DTPM, and that's why I wanted to mention it now. It's a benchmark of funding and financing of public transport in the main capital cities in Latin America, and it will be ready in a couple of months. So I also invite you to have a look to it in the next weeks. Thank you again.
Okay, so thank you all for your presence today. Thank you, Paola. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you, Dionisio. And to all our viewers, so please go to dtpm.cl, where you can download our reports, and we will also be sharing it among the people that join us today. So thank you all. Have a good morning. Have a good afternoon. And see you soon.
See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.